So welcome back, everybody. And, each time we listen to the commentary, because we listen to that same commentary every week, and you might be like me, I find that every time I listen to that commentary, I just go deeper and deeper and deeper into myself. And to really experience that inner silence is very powerful, incredibly powerful, actually. And the more we do it, the more we'll experience it. The more we go into that silent place within us, the more we'll experience our own inner power, the more the power will grow, actually. So it's a really, it's a wonderful practice. So for the past 3 weeks, we've been discussing spiritual powers. There's 8 spiritual powers. And just to do a very brief recap on what we've done so far. So in the first week, we talked of the power to withdraw, to turn my attention away from the physical world, turn my attention inward to my inner world and explore myself, get to know myself, introversion, introspection, spending time in that inner silence. And I'm able to get in touch with the deepest part of myself. And of course, we understand in doing that we're spiritual beings. We're not this physical costume that we wear is like the outer casing, but I, the soul, and the light and the actual identity, the spiritual identity that gives life to the body. So to withdraw, we can really start to get to know ourselves in that way. Then we looked at the following week, we looked at the next 2 powers, which was the power to discern and the power to decide. So the power to discern or to discriminate is to be able to see very clearly what's going on. I'm not confused or deceived or I'm not scattered. And so when I can see very clearly what's going on, it helps me know what to do, what's needed, what in a given situation. It also helps me to see potential consequences of situations, and I can consider, the impact that my actions might have. I can see very clearly if I do a certain thing, what might happen. If I do another thing, how that might result. So I can see and I know what's going on, and it gives me a sense of knowing what to do. But I can know what to do and never do it. And so I need the 3rd power, which is the power to decide, which means I'm taking responsibility, I'm taking action, and I'm doing something. And with that, if I've coupled that with the first 2 powers we've talked about, to withdraw and discern, then those decisions are likely to be very accurate and very, very wise decisions. And I'll find that, the outcome will be of benefit, not just to me, but to everyone. So then last week, we looked at powers 4 and 5 and the power to face. The power to, and the power to face is to have courage to face situations, people, myself. And with that courage, I'm able to pursue the things that I want to pursue. I'm able to move in the direction I want to move, and I'm not fearful of taking that step into the unknown, which of course any change is. So I have the courage to be able to move forward and take a determined step. And we looked at the power to let go or pack up. meaning that we're letting go of wasteful thoughts and negative thoughts, memories of the past, fears about the future, things that hold me back, things that keep me trapped. And when I let go of these sorts of thoughts and attitudes and feelings, I'm able to shine. You know, I'm not carrying baggage. I'm not trapped in the past. I'm not trapped in old attitudes and ways of doing things. I'm free to fly, really. So it's really wonderful to be able to apply the power to let go, and and a really simple way to do that is just to put a full stop to my thoughts. You know, when I notice that my thoughts aren't doing me aren't really do me any good, that may be harmful, to be able to have the power to just put a full stop to those thoughts and then change them to something that's better for me, change my thoughts to something that's more beneficial. For example, not, you know, I might be thinking in quite a negative way about someone and what they're doing. But of course, when I do that, I'm just putting negative energy into the situation. So if I put a full stop and I change my thinking, maybe to have, you know, mercy on that person, and or send them good wishes and encouragement that, you know, they'll be able to they'll be able to maybe see things differently, and you know, be a happier outcome for them. So we can do so much good when we use this power to let go. So we're up to week 4 of the powers tonight, and we're going to look at the last 3 powers. And really, I think these last 3 powers fit together very nicely. Jackie and I were having a brief discussion before we came on tonight, and I think you'll see how you can bring these powers together for a very good outcome, actually. So I've been doing a bit of thinking and a bit of you know, a bit of what we call churning, you know, going over things in my mind about these powers. And I've got a few notes here, so I hope you don't mind. I have a few notes that I want to refer to because, you know, we have a class that we attend as Brahmins every single morning, 365 days a year. We go to class. We're all students. And there's a lot of wisdom in the classes that we attend. And often I find that if I'm working on something, there'll be things in the daily class that will be relevant to what I'm working on. And that's been the case with these 3 powers that I've been thinking about for tonight's class. So there's a couple of things that I thought were particularly good that have come up this week that I'd like to share with you. So let's start with the power to accommodate. And if you think of this word accommodate, what does it mean? We we know that word as accommodation, you know, where we might be able to make space for someone to stay. And there's lots of ways we can look at this power, as there is with all the powers, because one thing you will find if you start experimenting with these spiritual powers, the more you experiment with them, the more depth, the more facets you'll find to each one, and many deep understandings, actually. So one thing that came up during the week that I thought was a very, very good point about the power to accommodate is when I'm using the power to accommodate well, I won't be attached to outcomes. Because think about this for a moment. When I'm attached to outcomes, it means that I have an expectation, or I, you know, have some sort of need that things will turn out a certain way, that things should be a certain way, that people should do things a certain way. And of course, when I am like that, it's a pretty limited vision, actually, and it doesn't allow for what could happen, which could be absolutely wonderful. Sometimes my opinion or the way I think things should be can really limit the possibilities. But if I'm not attached to the outcome and I'm willing to accommodate the possibilities that could exist in any situation, then I'm opening up to, actually, sometimes it's magic, that things turn out in a way that I could never have imagined, and better than I could ever have imagined. But when I try to control it, there's a certain amount of force involved with control, and like with any force, it might work for a short while, but long term, it really doesn't work. So it'll hold things down for a while, but they'll find a way of escaping. So force is never the answer here. But this freedom, if you like, of allowing outcomes to be what they will be is a form of using this power of accommodation. Power of accommodation is all about flexibility, actually. And when I'm flexible, I'm not stubborn, I'm not rigid. I'm also not a doormat. So it's not that I go too far the other way, that I'll accommodate things that actually can be harmful for me, or I accommodate too much. So I'm taken advantage of. Not that way. Because, of course, like any of these powers, if they're used in a way that's not powerful, then yes, they can be used too much the other way, where I may find myself being taken advantage of. So we've got to be aware, but to be flexible and not stubborn, to adjust, because often I really like this analogy. Imagine a stick in a stream, in a fast flowing stream. A stick, a wooden stick sticking up in the middle of a stream. The water's flowing past it very quickly, and the water's speeding up and flowing faster and faster. Now, this stick, if it's rigid, eventually the force of that water that's flowing is going to make it snap. But if it's a reed in the middle of the stream and the water's flowing faster and faster and faster, the reed will bend. It won't snap. And so this flexibility means that it will stand up to be there for another day. And when we use the power to accommodate in this way, with being flexible, it means that we bend, and we don't break. We're able to not be so rigid in situations, and we survive to play another day, if you like. And it does allow a flow of life, because life does flow, and their change is inevitable. I think we've talked about that already, that change happens. We really can't stop change. Change is the nature of life, that it's ever changing. And even though change comes with a certain amount of discomfort at times, it's always going to be there. Change will always happen. So if I'm resistant to it, I'm like the twig in the stream, that there's a likelihood I'll break. But if I'm flexible with it and I go with the flow of it, then I'm like the reed, that I can stand up to play another day. Another thing that I was thinking about with this power to accommodate, that when I'm able to accommodate, actually, I do it very well when I'm full inside. And what I mean by that is that I have everything that I need within myself. I'm not looking for satisfaction outside so much. When I'm like that, I become quite selfless, because if I am a bit empty inside, selfishness is sort of a natural byproduct of inner emptiness, that I'm always looking for things that will complete me. And that can really mean that, I'm looking for things to be what I need them to be. and I might not be so accommodating of other people's needs. But when I have an inner fullness, that I'm content with myself, that I'm feeling that I have everything that I need, then I'll be able to allow other people and what they need. If I'm empty, I'll always be seeking to fill myself up. And that's selfishness. So you can see how this works. And it's a very interesting thing, actually. The fuller I am, the more selfless I am, because I'm not needing things to fill me up. And the more selfless I am, the more giving I am. So the better I'm able I am to help other people, more accommodating I can be. And it helps to allow people to be who they need to be and do what they need to do, rather than trying to obstruct them and stop them and resist them. Because, again, we might be able to do that temporarily, but ultimately everybody will do what they need to do, and we really can't stop them. So better to be able to go with them rather than try to go against them. So to accommodate, this sort of ties in with what's already been said, but it creates a space for newness, because, life's pretty dry without newness. Newness brings excitement, enthusiasm, that it gives us that sparkle of anticipation. And for newness to happen, there needs to be space to accommodate it. So with the power to accommodate, I'm allowing that space. I'm not filling the space with what already is here that I'm unwilling to change, but I'm open to the change, and I've got this space for newness, which allows for these wonderful possibilities that can come. And with that, who knows what wonderful things can come to me. So that space is a space full of possibilities of what can be. And when I'm using this power well, I'm not going to be jealous of others, and I won't be threatened by others, because to be able to accommodate others and allow them to be who they are and what they need to do, if I'm feeling very guarded about my own life and very inflexible, then I may feel quite threatened when somebody has a fresh idea or wants to bring something new into the equation. Or I might feel quite jealous of them too. So again, when I'm able to use this power well, those two things won't apply. But you can see the damage that can be done when they do apply. When I feel threatened and when I feel jealous, they're very negative feelings that generate a very negative energy that will be quite damaging in any situation, and certainly in relationships. So when I'm not feeling like that, when I'm able to be open rather than feeling threatened and guarded and jealous, then the energy that I'm sending into situations open them up even more. I'm secure in myself and in my position, and that allows me to allow them, if you like. So secure in my position, confident in myself, but it doesn't mean I stay where I am. I'm willing to move forward. And if I were to sum up how I think about this power to accommodate, and I have a word in my head that I always use when I think of the power to accommodate, and it's the power to stretch, so that I can stretch, I can become bigger on the inside to allow everybody else to become bigger too. And when I become bigger on the inside, the whole world becomes bigger, and all the possibilities become bigger as well. So it allows for every possibility, and the most exciting outcomes can reveal themselves. So this is just my ideas about this power to accommodate. I'd like to suggest a question to you, and maybe we just reflect for a moment before we move to the next one. Think of this power to accommodate maybe some of the things that have been said, and if you would like to consider a situation in your life, or maybe an issue or a problem that you're facing, and how might this power be useful to help with that situation, to help with the issue that you might be facing at this time. So let's just reflect for a few moments and see if something comes to you, if this gives you something that you might be able to work with in a really practical way in your life. And that might be a question that you'll continue to reflect upon after we finish tonight. So let's look at the second of the three powers that we're looking at tonight, and that's the power to tolerate. And we've said before with these spiritual powers that they can be understood in ways that is not spiritual. And this is another one of those that can be understood in a way that's not spiritual. So when we talk of the power to tolerate in a spiritual sense, it doesn't mean, often, when you hear this word, people think it's like, I have to put up with something. I have something that I really don't like. I just have to put up with it. That's, I guess, using this word in a very worldly sense, but in a spiritual sense, that's what we're going to explore, and it actually means something very different. So the power to tolerate, I said to you before that I think about accommodation. When I think of one word, I think to stretch. When I think of tolerate, I think to withstand. And the power to tolerate, what I mean by that, the power to tolerate enables us to be able to withstand negativity, because we know that, the world, sadly, at the time, the days that we're living in now, can be a very negative place. There can be a lot of negative energy. There's a lot of sorrow and suffering in the world, and it's all too easy to absorb that negativity, to be affected by it, impacted by it. I find myself getting sad as well. And if I'm able to tolerate well, it means that I'm understanding of situations. I'm helpful for people who need my help, but I'm not absorbing negativity or sorrow or suffering. So their sorrow doesn't become my sorrow. Their pain doesn't become my pain, because if that happens, then it's just sorrow and pain multiplied. It's not actually helping them. So with the power to tolerate, it means that I can be in a situation but not affected by it so much. And that's a very powerful thing to be able to do in these days where there is so much negativity about. And we may find ourselves in situations with, friends and family, in workplace, where, there's negativity around us, and it can seek to leave its mark on us. So to be able to withstand that, to be able to tolerate that is a really wonderful thing. It means that I'm holding strong and I'm able to send very positive energy out to all of those around me in need, rather than, because when I absorb the negativity, I'm unable to do that. It weakens me. So, if you like, I'm able to be in the world, but not brought down by the world. So it's not that we run off and hide in a cave. We still stay in the world and we still do what we need to do, but we're not affected by what's around us, what's going on around us. So another way to look at this power to tolerate is stability. Because, stability is a wonderful virtue. If I'm stable, it means that I don't fluctuate. And fluctuation can go up and down. So, and what I mean by that when I say fluctuate, that I might find that I have peaks where I'm insanely happy and maybe almost hysterically happy. But then you know what happens when I go up like that? The next thing that will happen, or eventually I'm going to go right down again. So I'll peak and then I'll go into a trough. But stability means that I'm more even. It doesn't mean that I don't experience happiness. Of course I do, but not those intensities that take me up and then I drop off from, that I'm sort of in a constant state. And in a spiritual sense, what we'd be seeking is that constant state is an elevated state, that I'm in a state of well-being that doesn't dip down into, sorrow or sadness or depression, but also doesn't peak too high either, because that too can be not sustainable. So stability is, it's a bit like bedrock, that when I'm stable, I won't shake in the face of situations. I'll be internally strong and able to stand things. I mentioned withstand, but stand, and also stand up to things that come at me. They don't knock me over and take me out. I'm strong in the face of the things that come to me. And something else to consider here is, because often the challenges that come to me will be people. And so to be stable, in relationships or challenging situations with people, really means, to do this very well and to use this power to tolerate really well, means that I'll have a very pure consciousness. And what I mean there is I can hold a pure consciousness, and I'm not adding to the negativity by having negative thoughts about them. So if they're, in an anxious state or an angry state and coming at me in that way, that I'm not responding with anger or anxiousness or even, dislike or hatred. I'm not responding in that way. I'm holding a pure consciousness. Now, I mentioned just before about the classes that we have each day, and there was a really beautiful class yesterday. And there was something that touched my heart very deeply. And my interpretation of what was said is, the secret to tolerating is love. And I don't mean when I say that, I don't mean love in the sense of being loving to people or being in love, but what I mean is being in a state of love, because love's actually an original quality of the soul. It's something that we have as a right. It is part of who we are. And when I'm in a state of love, then if negativity is coming towards me, I can't respond with negativity if I'm in a state of love. And so I'm able to tolerate the negativity, but also because love is very powerful when I'm in that state of love. Imagine the power that I'm putting out. Imagine the change and the impact that will have on that negative energy that others are sending towards me. Imagine the impact it'll have on the person who's, in a state of upheaval, behaving in the way that they are. It'll help them. So to be in a state of love is incredibly powerful, and it's linked very firmly to this power to tolerate. Another thing that's really important to consider when I'm talking about this state of love is that I have love for myself. So it's not just being in a state of love where that will help other people, but it's also for myself, because not only do we need to be able to tolerate situations and people who are coming at us with negativity, but we also need to be able to tolerate ourselves when we are not what we would wish to be, when we're not as good as we would like to be, we're not as accomplished as we would like to be, when we make mistakes. And we all do that. We all do make mistakes from time to time. So if I'm in this state of love, means that I have absolute self-respect for myself. We talked a little bit last week about this when we were talking about the powers last week. So if I'm in this state of self-respect, this state of love, I'll be able to tolerate my mistakes. It doesn't mean that I'll give myself permission to keep making the mistakes. I'll learn from them, I'll move on, but I will tolerate the mistake means that it's not going to bring me down. It's not going to take me out. I won't be so devastated and disappointed with myself that I can't move on. So I can tolerate my imperfections, if you like, which means I can actually move on from them. So, and I do apologise for keep on referring to the notes, but I've got a few of them here, and I'm hoping that they're valuable for you. Just on that, when I'm able to tolerate myself, it puts me in a really nice position that I'm not adding to the problem with blame, blaming myself and feeling guilty about things that I've done, or, self-deprecation where we just hate ourselves, or, we really dislike who we are. And we think we're terrible people, because that never helps. It really, just adds another layer of problem. So to be able to tolerate the mistakes means I won't go there. Hold the self-respect means that I won't sink into that sort of damaging way of looking at myself. I'll hold the respect, I'll hold the awareness that I'm a worthy being, and that I can be what I wish to be, and I can learn and move on, and I will, and I'll progress, and I'll become what I want to be. So that were my thoughts on tolerance and the power to tolerate. So let's do the same as we did on the first one now. So let's just take a moment and consider this power to tolerate, and consider how this might be useful for you in a situation that you're facing, or relationship, or even something you're dealing with your inner self. the power to tolerate. How might it help you? So let's just reflect for a few moments. And again, that might be one that you find yourself thinking about after we finish tonight and move forward in the days to come. So the last of the 8 powers is the power to cooperate. And when I think of the power to cooperate, I often think to myself that it's like the culmination of all the other powers, that when we're using all the other powers very well, we come to a point where cooperation's like the outcome. And when I think of cooperation, I think of harmony. So some thoughts on this power, the power to cooperate, is when I'm using the power to cooperate, I'm generous-hearted. I'm willing to give unselfishly of my own gifts, of my own talents, of my own specialties. I don't hold back. I give freely of what I have to help other people. And as well as that, I appreciate their talents and gifts and specialities, and I see them and what they can offer to a situation. So I'm willing to share my own, but I'm also willing to put them in front. So it doesn't always have to be me in front. It may be that there's somebody else who has exactly what's needed for a job that needs to be done, and I'll cooperate with them so that they can use their gift or talent to bring to the situation. I won't shut them out. When I'm using the power to cooperate, I'll take responsibility for what needs doing, because you know what it's like. Sometimes it'll be that we see that something needs doing, but we may think, well, actually, that's not my job. It's not my job to do that. It's somebody else's job. And so we don't do it because we sometimes will think, well, if we do it, then that person might get lazy on it and think, right, well, I don't have to do it anymore. And then I end up always having to do it. But it doesn't have to be like that. I think often, and a really nice example, here, because as you know, this is a retreat centre, and there's residents who live here, and we have programs and, people who come for courses and day programs. And so, there's a lot of cooperation goes on here at the Peninsula Retreat Centre with, having to look after accommodation, having to look after the kitchen and the cooking and the preparation of food, having to prepare the dining room, all that, having to clean, there are just so many tasks that are going on in the background. And if you've come here for programs and day programs, you would have seen the people running around in white who are doing those things. But there'd be some people that you don't see that are really in the background just doing those things in a very, if you like, an incognito way. And they're cooperating to create the experience for the people who come and enjoy the atmosphere in the programs here. So in this spirit of cooperation, it's really so lovely, because you so often see, people step in, maybe there's something that needs doing, and maybe it isn't their job to do that, strictly speaking, but they'll step up and step in to do what needs to be done to get things done. And, when everybody has that same vision, things get done, but one person doesn't become a martyr or responsible for it, because everybody's got the same attitude. Let's all get done what needs to get done. Let's make it happen. And so, with enthusiasm, with consideration for others, everybody steps in and helps, and the jobs get done. So there's a lightness with cooperation, because, sometimes with responsibility, there's a burden or a heaviness. But when I am really in the spirit of cooperation, I'll go about what I'm doing in a very light-hearted way, and I'll take the responsibility, but I'm not burdened by that responsibility. I'm doing it with joy in my heart. And when there's joy in my heart, it's not a job anymore. It's a joy. I'm dancing through whatever I'm doing. I'm not slogging. It's not a hard slog. So, and really, when you think about it, anything we do, we can make it a big chore, or we can make it a light-hearted joy. Anything we do, even the job we like to do least. I often do this when I'm doing the ironing. I'll think the most joyous thoughts I can think when I'm ironing, and it becomes a very joyful experience. The job has to be done, so why be burdened by it? Why not enjoy it? And then all the shirts get ironed, no problem, and everybody's happy. So with cooperation, with the power to cooperate, we don't keep score. It's not that I'm thinking, well, I've done this and I've done that, and that, I'm notching up points. I'm not looking for recognition or kudos. I'm happy just to give without needing those things. And I'm able to be like that because, again, as with the previous powers we've talked about, I'm full in myself. So I'm not needing that extra recognition or pat in the back. And, the paradox is, when I'm not needy of that approval, I'll get it. People notice, but people also notice when I'm needy of approval, and it puts out a very different energy. So when I'm full inside and I'm just giving wholeheartedly, people appreciate it so much. And often they'll tell me, I don't need to hear it, but often you will hear it, because it puts out a beautiful energy that people notice, and it helps them too. So, if I want people to cooperate with me, doing things with that sort of an attitude and that energy, they'll want to, because they'll be attracted to the energy that I'm putting out. I'm certainly, when I'm cooperating, I'm not a martyr. And a martyr feels like I've got to do everything, and it's all up to me, and nobody else can do it as good as me. And, if I want this job done, then I must do it. And that's a pretty sad sort of attitude in lots of ways, because we're not allowing space for other people to contribute. And sometimes one of the greatest mercies that we can have is just to allow someone to do something. So often I've just been away for the weekend, interstate, delivering a program. And last night somebody said to me, I really want to give you a gift. There's a particular gift I want to give you. And I didn't need the gift. It wasn't something that is even really all that useful for me. But I could see how much it meant to this person to give the gift. And so, of course, I accepted it, and I accepted it wholeheartedly because it was being given from them wholeheartedly. And just to allow them to give the gift was an act of cooperation with them. And they were so happy to be able to do it. So sometimes just allowing someone to do something is a great act of cooperation. And you know how good we feel when we do things. So why not allow other people to feel as good as we do when we do it? Just a couple more thoughts that I had. You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about what the world would be like if everybody was in the same state of consciousness. And imagine a world, because you know how good you feel when you give. You know how good it makes you feel when you're able to help someone else. So this is really what cooperation is all about, that we're giving freely of ourselves. We're not holding back. We're willing to help, to lend that hand. We're willing to allow others to give help as well. We're willing to unite and work together. Imagine what it would be like if the whole world was in that state of cooperation and everybody was able to give freely from their hearts, unite and work together. Imagine what it would be like if the world was like that. Because really the world can be like that. And if enough of us bring this spirit of cooperation into the world, then it will move towards it. But where does it start? It starts with me. So when I start to cooperate, then I'm opening up cooperation and the spirit of cooperation for the rest of the world. And the more I do it, the more people with a full heart, the more I think you'll find other people will join in and cooperate along. And this spirit of cooperation will grow. Now, that's pretty much what I wanted to say tonight. So maybe if there's any questions or comments, or Jackie, if you have some things that you would like to say.
Hello, Angie, and thank you so much for the way you've unpacked each of those powers. Because when we teach them, we use these words, and as you said, they do have a meaning in our physical existence, and they have an entirely different meaning in our spiritual existence, but not so much different in that it's just the perspective we put on them, isn't it? And if you don't mind my looking at my notes, I was thinking of all the strategies you actually suggested. May I run them through them? Because I was thinking, summing up what you've been saying, the result is stability, a strength to respond to any situation that's put in front of us. And so let me just summarize what you've been saying. I thought it was so wonderful tonight, Angie. Now you said a full stop. And then you said you'd like to stretch. Yeah? And I was thinking of that rubber band example, if you stretch too much. And then the ability to bend. The responsibility for my own responses, knowing that they're coming from myself. You talked about open-heartedness. You talked about unlimited in accepting outcomes, such a good point, of allowing others to have an opinion, giving them that freedom. You talked about the power of the powers. They must be powerful. And cooperation is kind of moving naturally into a team activity, sort of was a matter of joy, joining with others in a team activity. You gave the example of here, and the experience and the creativity of creating feelings of joy while you're doing the ironing. And there's always an accomplishment in doing the ironing as well. So I thought about strength and stability. And those also were the words that Anthony used in that reflection beforehand: strength and stability. And sometimes we might think of peace as not being very powerful. But as you, I think you would say too, would you not, that having peace, a peaceful state of mind, allows you to consider whichever one of these powers is applicable at an appropriate time, and to have an understanding, as you've been leading us through, of each one of these powers gives us such a resource that we can consider a strategy for behavior from a state of mind which is quite calm and reflective and not critical. I don't know whether you can pick anything up for that. I've already taken the words out of your mouth, Angie, but you're very resourceful. So I'm hoping you can.
I think that's such a wonderful summary, Jackie. It was it was very comprehensive, fantastic. And you know, I think that because, you know, these powers are for practical use, they're for use now in the world that we're living in. So you know, to apply them to our lives means that, you know, really, what are we aiming for when we're making use of spiritual powers? As you say, you know, we're starting from a position of peace where it gives you that ability to see what's, you know, what power is going to be appropriate at the time, because we can, you know, if we don't do that, then there's a risk of using the power that isn't the accurate one for the time. So I might, you know, withdraw when really I should face, for example. But to be able to use these in a masterful way to help me navigate the challenges that I face in day-to-day activities. It's not that you save them all up for the big problem, but you apply them every day in all situations, because it's like anything else, that the more I experiment with these spiritual powers, the better I get at using them. So mastery requires practice and repetition to become masterful. So I need to keep on experimenting with them, keep on applying them, and I'll get better at using them. You know, it's not that I'll use them once and I'll become an expert. It doesn't. Nothing works that way. I need to keep on practicing with it. So, and I sort of find that it's the using spiritual powers in even very small situations. How it's like you accumulate mastery, you accumulate spiritual power, actually, and so next time you're a little bit more expert at being able to apply it.
And I was thinking too, because again, my harping on the peaceful state of mind to start with, because that will be the vibration that comes across. So you may be able to use the power, but if you use it with an attitude of being a goody two shoes, you know, too good to believe. But when it comes across with that peaceful vibration, it has a sincerity and genuineness about it, which is very palatable, I suppose. And so I was thinking how you were talking also right through the series, that the aim is that we get to the point of being stable and being able to respond and not react and draw our six guns and shoot. So I think that's what you were saying, mastership. I like this thought about being a master of our tendency to react to situations. Would you say that? A master of?
Yeah. Because I mean, you know, when you think of it like reaction, when we react, we're not a master when we react, but when we're able to respond appropriately, then we are masterful. So, so every time I react, that's like an auto reflex thing. But when I am able to consider and respond appropriately, then I have the ability to be able to bring something positive to the situation. Reaction will sort of tend to be this automatic thing, and as we'd understand, you know, for anybody who's sort of done the course, that one thing we understand about the soul is that the soul is affected by our the journey of our life, and so we have impressions on the soul. That's where these reactions come from. So, you know, when we react in a certain way, it's because we've got, you know, like imprints on the soul that are triggered when something happens. So rather than being triggered, I'm able to consider and respond, which means I can change things. I'm not. It's not. It's within my power to change situations rather than deepen the impression because I'm reacting in the same way I've always done. I always get angry when this thing happens. No, I'm bringing one of the powers in, whichever is appropriate for the situation, which changes my response, and that will in turn start to change the impression on the soul, leave a very positive impression on the soul. So next time I will, my auto response will be a little different, and gradually that will change and become more and more positive.
Nice, very nice. Could I, when you asked the question, for us to consider a situation where we might have used the power to accommodate, and I was thinking about accommodate because we just had a long process when we have quite a few guests here, in-house program, and we had to accommodate them in their various rooms, as you know. So we wanted to make them comfortable. So accommodating is about making them comfortable. And I was thinking, okay, to accommodate a situation, first of all, I think, yes, that's the situation. So I see it clearly. Now thinking, yes, I'll apply it to a situation which has just arisen for me. And then I thought, okay, this is what I can do about it. So it's like once the people are accommodated nicely in their rooms or in the dining room, we can get on with the program. That's settled. And so in accommodating the situation that arose for me, I was thinking, yes, all right, we settle that down, we accommodate, we respond. And then this is the strategy of behavior as a result of it. Anyway, I was just saying to respond.
As you were saying that, Jackie, that there's acceptance has to be there, doesn't it, of the situation, because otherwise there's resistance and denial. So actually acceptance, this is here. I might not like it, but it's here. I accept that it's here. And then that allows me also to be able to, you know, start to do what I need to do to accommodate.
That, and many, many thanks for this series. Has been very rewarding and very valuable. Appreciate it.
And, you know, it's like doing this, I must say, it's been really rewarding for me, because when you do something like this, makes you think very deeply. So, you know, it always deepens your own understanding. So the more you think about these things, the more you understand them. So I'd encourage everybody to be, you know, thinking about these things, because the more you do that, the more it will deepen your understanding. Thanks so much, Jackie. So let's take a moment now. Become comfortable, relaxed, and calm. Any turbulence of the mind, I allow to settle. The mind becomes calm and cool and free. And with my clear mind, I'm able to dive deeply within myself. My mind is not obstructing my journey inward with distracting thoughts. My mind is cooperating with me, allowing me to easily go deep within myself. Deep within me is a core of spiritual power. It is a strength of being that always exists. It is the light of my consciousness, the light of my very existence. For all of us, over time, our lights have become dim, but our lights are never extinguished. The power is always there. It becomes depleted, but never leaves us. Now is the time to become internally strong once more. Now is the time for my light to shine brightly once again. Spiritual strength, inner power. I am a bright, shining light, and the brighter my light becomes, the greater my inner strength. The more I become a beacon of hope for the world. So let me shine so brightly Let my light dispel the darkness. Let my strength be strength that helps many others. Spiritual strength, inner light. Let me be this. Let me do this. And every day, let me tend to my light with awareness and meditative attention. Each time I do so, the light will strengthen. Let me just take a few moments now to focus on the power of my own light. Om Shanti.